guys, here we go. I'm going to try doing some screen sharing with you guys, and hopefully this all works just fine. If you have a question, by the way, feel free at any point to jump in. I can't always see chat whenever I'm doing this, but right now, can you guys let me know, are you seeing my my PowerPoint slides? Can I get a yes or a no? You see my slides?
Yeah, I can see it.
Excellent. All right, guys. Here's where we're at. It's the end of our first week. If you have not yet, check in on Canvas. Just do the start here kind of stuff, so I'll make sure that you're good to go. And start reading the chapter 1 of the book. We're not in a hurry at this point in time. We're going to be taking our time. And as if you recall from the last class, I did move back our assignments from the 28th or from the 23rd to the 28th, and today we're actually going to be going through the 5 environments of business. So that assignment is going to be covered today. You're going to have a chance to actually get started on that in class today. And on Monday, we're going to go through your LinkedIn profile. So right now, you have no pressure on you in this class other than to be here and to be a part of the class. Now today, we're going to continue chapter 1, and we're going to get into some group work on the environments of business. So again, this will be one of those things that it could be great, could not work out well. We're going to all find out together. Now we left off talking about the 5 factors of production. So we've got land, obviously, and natural resources, because you need stuff to make things. So in other words, if you want to make stuff, you have to have raw materials, you have to have components. Where we are in this part of the United States, what are some of the big raw materials and natural resources we have here?
Isn't coal one of them?
We have lots of coal, and actually Pennsylvania here.
Are you talking Pennsylvania or the United States?
Well, we were talking Pennsylvania, but the United States in general, what do we have lots of?
Money.
We do. We have lots of capital to invest. We also have a lot of other things, though, too. I'll give you a hint. They used to call the United States the breadbasket of the world. What did they mean by that?
You talking about like wheat with like a lot of farms and stuff like that?
Exactly right, man. We've got more what they refer to as tillable land for the size of our country than most other countries. So we're really blessed to have a big agricultural infrastructure, but we've also got large deposits of coal. We've got large iron ore deposits. We have lots of ways to make things. We have a skilled labor force too. We are able to, for example, have people who have skills in industry who are able to adapt to new technologies. There's lots of money in this country in terms of investment capital. And by the way, guys, we're going to be covering this in a later chapter, but some of you may already be doing this. What's a way that you guys individually are able to put money into industry in this country? How can you invest in businesses?
Buying a share.
You got it, man. If you're playing on the stock market, you have the opportunity to be a business owner, because that's how it works. Then we get into entrepreneurship, and that simply means somebody's willing to take a shot. And knowledge means we've got people in this country who've got skills, whether they're folks, for example, who went to college or learned it through the school of hard knocks, or maybe a little bit of both. We've got a lot of the knowledge to power the 21st century economy. So we're very fortunate in this country to have what we have here. So what's an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is somebody who basically says, look, I don't want to work for somebody else. I have this great idea. I'm going to start a business. Now, here's the trick, guys. A lot of entrepreneurs aren't immediately successful. When I say entrepreneurs, when I say people who have made big, successful businesses, who are some of the names that come to mind?
Bill Gates.
I'm sorry?
Bill Gates.
Yeah, Bill Gates, man. Bill Gates started his business while he was in college and made one of the most successful companies in the world. Great answer. Who else, guys? Who else can you think of? I'm sorry? Steve Jobs. I'll show you guys a picture of Steve Jobs' first computer sometime. He actually built this thing in his garage, and it literally, the circuits were laid out on a piece of wood. The first Mac computer was partially made out of wood because he built it in his garage. One more, guys. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Kevin Plank.
And I'm not familiar with that name, but what did that person create?
I think it's the guy from Under Armour. That's his name.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry I didn't recognize the name. Do you know why he started Under Armour, by the way?
No, I know he started in the basement though.
He said that the workout gear he was using wasn't good enough. When he would go to his workouts, he was sweating so much and he was getting, all chafed up because he's covering these wet clothing. And so he created Under Armour to have better high performance gear. And by the way, we have a St. Francis alum, a guy by the name of Marcus Penny, who just finished up last year as a brand manager for Under Armour. So we have people from St. Francis who have made big connections with that company as well. One more. What's one more entrepreneur that you guys think highly of?
So them all Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos. Yeah, man. We're talking about currently the richest guy in the world. In terms of Amazon right now, you won't find a more valuable company simply because of how they have prospered during the pandemic. They were already doing well, but we're talking about a company that's literally going to control everything from point of purchase to the point where it arrives in your house. Have any of you guys heard of the Amazon doorbells you can get now where you can let deliveries come into your house?
No,
guys-
but it sounds like the devil.
I agree. I mean, the question is, how much is too much? How much of Amazon in your life is too much? And I mean, when we think about it, Alexa is a pretty ingenious invention in the fact that we talk to her all the time. I don't have an Alexa, but I know, for example, people who have Amazon Echo, it's a pretty convenient way. You can just say something and buy it. In fact, Amazon's newest initiative is going to be to predict what you might like to buy, and you can actually sign up for a service where they'll send you clothing that you're likely to like before you actually even pick it yourself. So yeah, entrepreneurs do these things, guys. Let me ask you though, if we're thinking about these people, if we're thinking about Jeff Bezos, if we're thinking about Bill Gates, if we're thinking about folks who have made big things, Elon Musk from Tesla, what kind of traits do these individuals need? What makes somebody a good entrepreneur?
Just willing to take risks.
Yeah, man. Are you willing to put it out there? Risk for rewards. We got risk takers. What else, guys?
Determined.
Having the motivation to have ideas to make them come true.
Having kind of the stick-to-itiveness, as they used to say. They say, I've got this big idea, we're going to carry you through. And I heard somebody else speaking too. What else?
Determined.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that.
Like when you first start a company and you don't have like a lot of money as like a startup, just like keep going, keep persevering to get over like the challenges. Because maybe one day you'll be like a really big company.
And somebody who's an entrepreneur, oftentimes you can't wait for somebody to give you a pat on the back because sometimes there's hard times and you just got to find your own way through it. Great. Anything else that makes somebody a great entrepreneur?
You have to be innovative and adaptive.
You have to have that idea that nobody else has. And in the early days of smartphones, you know what they used to call them were killer apps. Do you have the killer app that everybody is going to want? I know this goes back a few years, but for example, one of the things that got people really gaming on smartphones, actually, let's see if you guys can guess. What was the game that really got people buying into gaming on smartphones?
Tetris.
Tetris for sure. I'm thinking of another one that may have even made some movies.
Angry Birds.
Angry Birds. And it was like, I know that's going way back there, but that was one of the things that convinced people you can play games on a phone. So are there other skills that entrepreneurs need?
Leadership.
Leadership. Yeah, you've got to be able to know that the buck stops here. Excellent. What else? Anything else that they might need? Well, I think you guys created a pretty good list. Entrepreneurs also have to be willing to make mistakes. Check this out, guys. Henry Ford, the founder of Ford Motor Company, very famously said you can have a Model T Ford car. It was the first mass production automobile. You can have it in any color you like as long as it's black. And what that meant is he made one car. If you didn't like it, tough. That's all we make. That wasn't his first car company, though. He failed a couple of times before he finally had a company that stuck. You'll find lots of entrepreneurs who will repeatedly fail, but they dust themselves off and they get back up. So entrepreneurs aren't afraid of failure. And oftentimes when you come up with a business idea, for your first period of existence, you might not even take a salary. You might take enough to put food in your belly and pay your rent, but you're not really making any money. If we look again, going back to Jeff Bezos and Amazon, It was a really good idea, but it took a few years for it to take flight. So we also have people who create while they're working for other people. All right, we were talking early, for the folks who came into class early, I absolutely love superheroes, and I'll put them into as many things as I possibly can. Does anybody know where the co-creators of Spider-Man? We know Stan Lee was one of them. The other was a guy named Steve Ditko. Anybody know where Steve Ditko was from?
Was it England?
Good guess. I'll give you one more hint. It's very close to St. Francis. Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Johnstown, Pennsylvania, 25 miles from here is where Steve Ditko, the co-creator of Spider-Man, is from. But here's the trick. If you get guys like Steve Ditko and some of the biggest comic book artists we know from years, they were working for somebody else when they created these characters. So say, for example, if you're an artist and you're working for DC Comics and you created this awesome villain to take on Batman, as his arch nemesis, if you created it while you're working for somebody else, you might not get the intellectual property and it might not belong to you, but we'd call you an entrepreneur. So an entrepreneur is somebody who creates things on their own for their own personal benefit. An entrepreneur is somebody who creates while they're working for somebody else. So, for example, Spencer Silver, the guy who helped create the Post-it note, was working for 3M. I'll give you another hint too, guys. How many of you, I know that I'm a good bit older than you guys. I probably have a bigger soft spot in my heart for McDonald's than you guys do. But the Big Mac was created by a guy who actually owned a McDonald's franchise and came up with the idea for a double-decker sandwich. The Big Mac is from New Kensington, Pennsylvania, right outside of Pittsburgh. What do you think McDonald's paid the guy who created the Big Mac? What did they give him for creating the best-selling fast food sandwich of all time?
A high five.
It's not far off. That's not far off at all. They gave him a plaque. How would you feel if you were the guy who created like one of the biggest fast food phenomena in history, and your reward was a plaque to hang on the wall? That doesn't really seem fair, does it?
No.
Well, that happens to entrepreneurs a lot. Now, if you're in a well-run company, like for example, Google, people from Google get rewards for creating things. People who work for big tech companies are well rewarded because let's say you're creating all this good stuff and you're not getting paid, you're not getting rewarded. Are you going to stay with that company?
No, not really, because you kind of gonna feel like you're not getting like the credit you deserve.
Man, in this economy, if you have skills, you're going to go somewhere else or you're going to start your own business. For example, a lot of the people, Google and Uber are competing against each other right now because they're both working on autonomous vehicles, and a lot of those people go between those companies. So an entrepreneur who works for somebody else is an entrepreneur. Now, we talk about what the great things are about being an entrepreneur, being your own boss, for example. What might be great about being an entrepreneur?
The same responsibilities as as an entrepreneur, as like the head of a company.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. So you have some lowered responsibilities, right? And what else?
More freedom.
More freedom? Tell me more about that. That's a good point.
I probably want to say like more freedom, but there's like less, kind of like what he said, there's less pressure on you. So there's like, it's just easier to be free and work on whatever you need to work on.
So it's kind of lower stakes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. And are there other benefits as well?
If you're an entrepreneur, you're probably like your own product has to make your money, and the entrepreneur, your company's gonna be paying you, so you don't really got to worry about that.
Yeah, you're at higher risk if you're an entrepreneur because if you're not making bank, you're not getting paid. Where if you work for another company, you're getting paid, you're getting benefits, you're getting all these things. And check this out, guys. Let's talk about this for a second, why that's important to some folks, because we're going to be talking about quality of life. Let's say everybody in this class, you guys are all top-notch students. I believe you are all top-notch students. Let's say you get out and you get your first job and you're making $100,000 a year right out of college. Wouldn't that be awesome? By the time the company pays your benefits, what is that company actually spending to keep you?
What kind of benefits are we talking about?
Healthcare, insurance, retirement. What by the time they're paying all your perks, what are you actually costing that company?
150 to 200,000.
A little lower than that, but you're not far off. It's about 130. If you add 30% onto an employee's salary, that's usually what they cost the company. So if you're paying somebody $100,000 and you're giving them benefits, that person actually costs you about 130. And there are plenty of entrepreneurs out there who make way less than that while they're getting their businesses up and operating. You guys are really close to this, though. We're going to do a quick check-in, guys, because we've been covering a lot of things so far in terms of basic business concepts. And help me out here. So what's the difference, guys, between revenue and profit?
Profit is the money that you have after you pay off your expenses, and then the revenue is the money that you bring in as like total.
You got it. You got it. And generally speaking, in most companies, what's the biggest expense and most complicated part of the company?
Maintain.
Employee.
I'm sorry?
Please.
Employees, yeah. People are expensive. People are expensive and they're complicated and they're tough to deal with sometimes. It's like we have a human resources department because people can be very challenging. In terms of the 5 factors of production, we just covered that, but who here can tell me one of the 5 factors of production?
Capital.
Excellent. Who can tell me another one?
Labor.
Yep. Keep going.
Entrepreneurship.
Yep.
Knowledge.
Knowledge, for sure.
And resources.
You guys are nailing this, guys. And why is it important, especially in a capitalist economy like we have? Why are entrepreneurs so important?
We put all those pieces together to get the company working.
We get basically the big ideas, guys. And here's something we didn't cover in the lecture. Almost everybody in the United States, even though we have big corporations that ultimately make more money, more people, about 6 out of 10 people in the United States, their first job will be working for a small business. So small businesses and entrepreneurs are really important for all of us as well. Guys, we're gonna be moving on to some new content, and we're gonna be starting to talk about the business environments. But before we do, I'd like to take a second because we're about 20 minutes into class. We're making good time today. I want to make sure I give an opportunity for questions. Guys, are there questions or comments? About anything, guys. It could be anything. It's your first week here at St. Francis. I'll tell you anything you want to know.
I just noticed that B is Kobe.
Awesome. That's fantastic. I can mark you in. Thank you for letting me know that. And by the way, just because we were kind of a little chaotic getting in this morning, is Breon here?
Yes, I'm right here.
Sorry about that, man. I just when I was managing people coming in, I didn't see you. Thank you for coming in, man.
Mm-hmm.
So, other questions, guys?
What would be an example of an entrepreneur?
An entrepreneur, the best example I can think of would be the Big Mac guy, the guy who created the Big Mac for McDonald's because he was actually working for somebody else when he created it, or the 3M guy, the guy who created the Post-it note, because he had a great idea, but he was working for somebody else. And the good part is all the things we said, you get paid, you get benefits. The bad part is you don't get a lot of pay or credit for it. So that would be my best example of an entrepreneur.
So is it kind of like a vice president?
I would say that it's more just like anybody in a company who has
just anybody in general.
Anybody who's got a good idea. So let's say, for example, here I teach at St. Francis. My main job is doing what we're doing right now. We're teaching. If I start a new club for students and we end up getting nationally recognized, I would count as an entrepreneur because I organized a club that wasn't part of my job necessarily, did something above and beyond. Make sense?
Did the McDonald's guy, did he get the Big Mac patent? He didn't get a patent?
No, McDonald's owned it, man. He did it while he was working for McDonald's. He got a plaque on the wall, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah. How would you feel if you were that guy?
I just don't think he thought it smart. Like, he should have just got a patent. Like, he should have just sat down with, top executives and talked about it, and not run over him like that. I would have got a patent so he could receive royalties from every Big Mac that's being sold. So
I'm with you.
that's kind of bad.
I'll tell you, in my past life, whenever I was working in technology, one time I had to go through a patent process. One of my employees, actually, you want to talk about entrepreneurs, one of my employees invented a new radio system. I mean, this guy was brilliant. And as his boss, I had to go through the patent process with him. So he got his name on the patent, but he didn't really get anything for it because he did it while he was employed for somebody else. That was one of the most difficult things I've ever done, is go through that process. And if you ever in your life go through a patent process, it's tough and it takes a long time, but we and a lot of money. So good questions, guys. But we're going to be getting into the environments of business, and we're also going to be talking about how these changing environments around us are affecting the way we do business. What is the biggest thing right now that's affecting the way we do business in this country?
Pandemic.
Yeah, man, it's changing everything. If you own stock in a grocery store or Amazon, I don't want to say you're happy about the pandemic, but you're making money. Who is not happy about the pandemic? What are businesses that are not doing well?
Probably smaller businesses.
Small businesses.
Restaurants.
I'm sorry?
Restaurants.
Restaurants are having a real tough time because people aren't going out. Did I hear movie theaters? Yeah, in fact, some movie theaters are just reopening today in certain parts of the country, but they're getting killed, man. They're getting killed. By the way, did you hear Disney Plus? They want to start releasing new Disney films directly to Disney Plus. They're going to be releasing the live-action version of Mulan. Did you hear what it's going to be going for?
It's going to be awful anyway.
It's going to be awful. But do you know what they're charging for it? $30.
I'm not paying $30.
I think they're going to price themselves right out on this one. People are going to say
$30 a month.
Well, $30 for that movie.
Oh, yeah, no.
People gonna buy.
So you gotta buy the movie, but you already buy Disney Plus.
Yeah, like that's kind of capping. Like there's literally no point.
They
Yeah.
taxing everybody, man.
Like it's just like a more expensive like Netflix. If anything, you just have to pay for movies. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I
People
think
still gonna buy it though.
Well, you know, the funny thing is, who experimented first? You remember when Trolls came out this year and people were buying it for their kids?
Oh yeah.
That was what, about $20? And Disney's taking it to the next level. I don't think it's going to work out well for them, but we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about how this stuff affects business, guys. Can you all see that graphic okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Guys, we have internal and external environments and internal environments that affect everything that we do. So the external business environment, we're thinking about the world around us. So right now, for example, you guys all correctly identified that we got a pandemic that's affecting the way we do business. And then internally to companies, we have the people who come up with the ideas, we get the entrepreneurs, we get the people who work for companies, and we have customers making decisions. And all of these environments in the middle of the circle are things that affect that. So like, for example, the technological environment. If we look 10 years back versus now, what has changed in the last 10 years about technology? What's something that you guys have with you everywhere that people in my generation did not grow up with?
No phones.
I mean, it's amazing, man. Even my vintage rockin' iPhone 6S gives me access to everything in the course of human history. So we're doing things on phones we wouldn't have imagined 10 years ago. And the very fact that most people are using ride-hailing services now on phones instead of calling taxi cabs. So the technology environment has enabled business to get better, but it can be a challenge as well. What's a challenge of the technology environment? What's something that's bad about the tech environment?
Well, a lot of companies like are so used to doing everything on paper to where it's like once they do get the new technology, a lot of companies don't really know how to use it.
So can they adapt? It's tough, especially for older businesses, right? And how many of you guys have ever heard of a company called Equifax? If you haven't heard of them, there are a total of three companies in the United States who are responsible for doing credit checks for people, and Equifax is one of them. 3 years ago, Equifax got hacked, and over 100 million Americans had their social security numbers and personal data exposed. So that's one of the risks in the technology environment. If you're Amazon, for example, are you securely housing your customers' data? Then we get into the economic environment. Right now, guys, are we in an expansion of the economy or a recession, a retraction of the economy?
Recession.
Yeah, we're in a recession right now. What does that do to most people's disposable income?
Down.
Yeah, so we have fewer people who are going to be making big purchases right now because everybody's saying we better save our money because we might lose our jobs. Then we get into the political and legal environment. Now, this isn't necessarily talking about whether you're voting for Trump, Biden, or independent. That's not so much what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the effects that decisions that politicians make have on our environment. For example, 2 years ago, when President Trump did massive tax cuts, it was good for business because they were able to operate with paying fewer taxes. So that would be an example of how politics had benefited business. Legality means what laws are in place that might limit your business or affect your business. So for example, let's say that I open a Popeye's chicken, because I love Popeye's chicken sandwich. If I open a Popeye's, for example, the legal stuff protects me in one way because I can get insurance to be able to make sure that if somebody falls in my parking lot and I get sued, that I don't go broke. But is there a legal aspect that could hurt me if I own a Popeye's too?
Say that again, please.
Let's say, for example, we have, I decide to open a Popeye's. And the legal environment means I legally can open a business. I legally can buy insurance to protect me in case somebody falls down in the parking lot. Those are good parts about the way our legal environment is set up. As a business owner, I can protect myself. But there are some things legally I'm afraid of if I'm a business owner. What's something I run the risk of if I own a Popeye's?
I guess one of your employees, like maybe getting sick, considering during this whole pandemic.
And my employee gets sick, gets somebody else sick. Let's say the health inspector comes in and I haven't been keeping up with health codes and the back of my restaurant doesn't look so good. Those are examples, for example, that can be challenges in the legal environment. So we're covering these as environments. When we look at demographics, guys, you guys are all part of a very key demographic. You're in the 18 to 35-year-old age bracket, and companies love you guys. Why do they care so much about people in your age group?
A lot of room for growth.
I'm sorry?
A lot of room for growth.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And you guys are setting your sights on what brands and things that you like. So you're forming your opinions right now. And if they get you at 18 and have you till you're 35, the other thing is you guys are young and you're cool and you influence other people. So let's say, for example, in the United States, let's see if you guys know the answer to this question. Right now, what's happening faster? Are we having more babies born or more people get older? In other words, is the amount of people living, are we seeing the population grow or decline?
Decline.
Grow.
We're actually declining. The birth rates are lower for lots of reasons. People are choosing to have fewer children, and we're living longer. So as a result, more people are living longer, and services that appeal to older individuals are coming to the forefront. So a lot of companies right now, this is really wild. A lot of companies, like even athletic apparel companies, are starting to say, how can we appeal to people over 65 because we have a bigger market share we could possibly get into. So demographics are challenging as well. Then we get into the social environment, and we're living through it right now, guys, and the fact that we've got different types of social consciousness that are happening. Who here remembers 2 years ago when I think it was the Kylie Jenner ad for Pepsi drew a lot of controversy? Do you remember what it was? Anybody remember this ad?
Didn't it like try and solve racism by like giving someone a Pepsi or something like that?
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah, so you have Pepsi who's saying, you know, all we really need to do to fix all the problems we're having with racial tensions in this country is all have a Pepsi. And it was like, wow, this is really tone deaf. And so the company was so out of touch with socially what was happening in the country that they ended up spending a lot of money on an ad that just got them deeper into trouble. Another part of the social environment that kind of crosses over with technology these days, let's say, for example, you have a bad experience with a product or service. Where are you going to vent about it?
Hi.
We're going to go on social media and we're going to show everybody in the world how bad the bacon looked on our sandwich sheets. And so the social environment gets into that. Then we get into the competitive environment, which means who are your competitors? Who are the people who are going up against you, and how are they competing with you? If you're Chick-fil-A right now, who's your biggest competitor?
Probably Popeye.
You got it. They're making the same kind of sandwiches. What's one advantage that Popeyes have, regardless if you like Popeyes or Chick-fil-A better, what's one advantage Popeyes has?
Chicken sandwich is bigger.
Well, it is bigger. I kind of like the Popeyes better, but that's personal preference. But
Well,
Open on
They're
Sunday.
open on Sundays.
open on Sundays. And in fact, whenever, Erica, whenever they put out their ad, when they announced the new chicken sandwich, right on the billboards, it said, available on Sundays. And so that's one of their competitive advantages. And then we get into global. Some companies, like if you're a small local company who mows grass for a living, if you're a lawn care business, you may have no impact of the global environment on you at all. That could happen if you're small and local enough. Almost every business that operates at any level of scale these days is a global business at some point. Let me give you an example. Back in 2011, something really crazy happened in the world. We had this tsunami in Japan that knocked out half the island's industrial capacity. Well, you might think to yourself, how could that affect Ford Motor Company? Well, Ford Motor Company was making in the United States F-150s, big pickup trucks, but that one color of black that everybody wanted needed a mineral that only came from one place, and that was Japan. So until Japan got their industrial infrastructure up and operating, you could not get a Ford in that color until that was fixed. If you had a Subaru, if you drove their WRX, their high performance car, you couldn't get parts for it because that was all coming out of Japan. So we are a very globally connected world at this point in time. And right now, with in terms of international industry, what is the big T word that's getting put on a lot of imports coming into our country?
Tariffs.
Tariffs. Does anybody, what is the purpose of a tariff? Why do we have to?
Tax the incoming goods.
Absolutely. And why do we do that?
I don't really know.
It's okay. We do it for two reasons. If we're having a dispute with another country, for example, like right now we're having a lot of complex relationships with China. We can slap a tariff on to just say, you know what, we're going to show you guys. If you're not going to respect us, we're going to charge you a little extra. Or you could say, well, Chinese cars are coming into the United States and they're cheaper, so we're going to put a tariff on them to make American-made products more competitive. Those are the two main reasons we put tariffs on the products, and that's why we have tariffs as part of the global environment. Does that all make sense, guys? What questions do you have so far? Right now, in 2020, of all those environments, if you were starting a business, what are the ones that would worry you the most?
Probably political, economical, and social.
And tell me why. Those are good ones to pick. Why would those be environments that would have you concerned?
Well, economic, because the economy right now is just not doing too good because of COVID. And then political and social, because there's like a lot of issues going on with like civil rights and stuff.
We got a lot to figure out, do we not? Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? What are the environments that would concern you the most?
I'll probably say global and like demographic.
Tell me more. You picked global first. Why global?
Well, I would say global because like trading with certain like countries and stuff like that. There's a lot of like countries that are still like going to war with each other. So it's like there's still like different countries like fighting for different materials like oil and stuff like that.
Yeah, we got a lot of instability right now in the Middle East for sure, and it seems like we might have some more wars flare up there as well. And tell me more. You said also demographic. Tell me more about that.
Um, it's like hard to put into like words, but
I, th- I think you picked an interesting one though. In fact, can I jump on that one with you?
yeah, you can jump in.
Okay, let's go like this. Now, in terms of generations, my generation, we're called Gen X, and we were people who were born between the years of about 1964 to about 1980. I was born in 1973, so I'm right in the middle of it. Our generation, there were certain things we really loved, and one of them, believe it or not, was motorcycles. We bought a lot of motorcycles, and people who are millennials, and now you guys, Gen Z, are buying fewer motorcycles because part of it is because you're smarter than us. You're not getting on things that you could potentially get killed on. I own a motorcycle, and my wife hates it because she's convinced I'm going to kill myself. But so companies like Harley Davidson and Kawasaki are freaking out a little bit because they're seeing their key demographic go away. People who would buy their product are starting to age out of buying it. So that's a big concern these days, guys. No two ways about it. It's a really good pick. Anybody else? What environment would scare you the most? What do you think?
I could also argue for competitive too. Like starting a company today would be so hard with all the companies that are already like established and well written down in paper.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we have a lot of competition. Also, I think the competitive environment and the global environment cross over. Let me give you an example. Like right now, I have this, which is really cool. I have this really cool Yeti microphone, and this thing is fantastic. It's a really nice mic, and I got it a couple of years ago for about $80. If I go onto Amazon right now, I can find knockoff versions of this for probably $30. And so it's really tough to compete with global markets too that are also competing very heavily on cost. That stuff is tough, guys. What we're going to be doing, guys, in terms of, and I'll give you some more examples of this stuff, but what I'm going to be asking you to do is essentially what we just talked through. I was originally planning on doing this in small groups, but it worked out well as the whole group. I'm going to be asking you for your assignment for the environments of business to pick a company of your choosing and apply all the 5 environments to it. In fact, we're going to walk through this today together. Will somebody tell me a company that they really think is a hot company or a company that they like or respect? Tesla, what a great company. So that company, even though they're based here in the United States, they've got internal and external concerns. So right now, some of the external things that they have to worry about. We're developing technology internally, but do we have competitors? Well, there's companies like Rivian, Riven, I think is their name, that's trying to make electric cars. In terms of other challenges, for example, we've got Tesla's currently based in California, but they're not liking some of the legal restrictions they have there, so they're thinking about moving. And they've got really intense issues with things like intellectual property. What we're going to do here, guys, we're actually going to walk through the 5 environments of business, or I should say the environments of business. It used to be 5, we renumbered them recently. We're going to walk through the environments of business with Tesla, and I'm going to ask you to tell me positives and negatives. Let's look at the economic environment. What is a positive aspect of the economic environment for Tesla? First off,
I guess you could say, like, since it's an electric car and the world's it's in a bad spot with like pollution and all that, like economically it's better to buy a Tesla, I guess you could say.
So Tesla might have lower cost of ownership, which could spur some people on to buy it. And is a Tesla more or less expensive than a conventional car?
More.
Yeah, it's a more expensive car. So your economic environment, a plus to the economic environment is there's enough wealthy people out there, or people with higher amounts of income, who can afford to buy a Tesla. The minus of the economic environment might be, because we're in a recession right now, a lot of people might be hanging on to their old cars for a long time, right? The average age of a car in the United States on the road, anybody know?
20 years.
Not quite that high, but it's about 12 to 13. Let's talk about the legal environment. A positive for Tesla in the legal environment is there's nothing to keep them from selling cars. You can sell cars and compete because we're capitalists. Has Tesla had any run-ins with the law lately? How many of you remember what was giving Tesla a lot of grief in the media the last year or so?
Is it like faulty cars?
There were batteries that were catching on fire, and there was one other thing. I'll give you a hint.
Self-driving car. When people
Yeah.
falling asleep.
How many of you guys saw the videos of people sleeping behind the wheel? It's like, yeah. And that came back on Tesla saying, you've got to stop this self-driving stuff until you can make sure people can't sleep behind the wheel. The technological environment. What's something that Tesla has as a competitive advantage, though? What's an advantage to Tesla in the technological environment?
Every feature that comes in the car that 99% of other cars don't have.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, would you drive a Tesla?
No, I'm not a bells and whistles type of person, but that's just me.
You play Mario Kart in your car with the steering wheel.
Yeah.
Here's what I like about the Tesla, though. They actually have a software you can download for your car that gives you "quote unquote" ludicrous mode, and that car will go 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds. Like, I have to admit, I'd like to drive that car. Now, is there a technological disadvantage for Tesla? What might be a disadvantage to Tesla?
It causes their drivers to drive while distracted, because like you could play like Netflix on the screen while you're driving, and like a person will be watching that instead of watching the road.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody could say in this day and age, you know what we need? We need more distractions.
Yeah.
You know, people aren't wrecking nearly enough. We need to put some video games in there, you know, maybe a frozen yogurt machine, something like that. So what about the competitive environment? What's an advantage for Tesla in the competitive environment?
Money-wise, they gotta get everybody.
Gas like other cars.
So it doesn't use gas. And how about name brand recognition? If I say Tesla, what do you guys immediately think?
Elon Musk.
Yeah, it's a very recognizable brand, and they were the first to mass market with a semi-affordable electric car. Is there a disadvantage for them in the competitive environment?
It's electric.
For sure, especially if you're in an area that doesn't have charging stations and it's not a hybrid. Are there other companies too that are trying to develop electric cars?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you got to go up against a dealer network like General Motors, Ford, or Hyundai, you're really going to be facing some competition. How about in the social environment? Is there an advantage socially to owning a Tesla?
Well, I guess a lot of people on like social media like posts and stuff like that they have a Tesla and the other people want to go and get one.
It's a status symbol, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is there a social disadvantage to Tesla?
People might think you're snobby.
It could happen. And did anybody see Elon Musk's interview with Joe Rogan last year? What did Elon do on the air?
Oh yeah,
Smoke
he
the
was
weed.
smoking weed with Joe Rogan. Yeah.
He's drinking whiskey and smoking a joint on the air. And I'm not setting judgment on anybody's personal preference, but a lot of the people who own stocks in Tesla were like, man, this is a really bad idea. How about demographics? What about demographics in this country? Because remember I said we have more older people than younger people. Is that an advantage or a disadvantage?
Advantage.
I agree. Why is it an advantage?
It's an advantage because older people can afford Teslas, and not young people can't.
Everybody I know who owns a Tesla is over 60. Is there a disadvantage? I'll just say it. That generation will not live forever. You got to appeal to younger consumers too. And how about global? Is there an advantage for Tesla globally?
Yeah, it's just very popular. It's a well-known business.
They're going to be setting up a factory in China. And is there a disadvantage to them globally?
A lot of responsibility.
For sure. And does anybody know, because the batteries in a Tesla are pretty much the same batteries you have in your smartphone. Where do the raw materials come from? China and Africa. So we're talking about having to manage supply chains of rare earth elements. So guys, what we just did there, verbally, we just did your first assignment. So what I'm asking you to do is to pick your own company. When I say the environments of business, all I'm asking you to do is to go through that company with each of these environments and tell me positives and negatives. You don't have to write a book. 1 page is going to suffice. I'm going to ask you to take a look at that assignment, but you've got some extra time to do it. It's not due on Monday. We moved it to the end of the week, but we just did it together. So are there questions, guys, before I let you loose for your weekend? Yes, sir.
What format do you want the assignment to be in, like Word or PowerPoint?
I actually gave you a Word template you're free to use.
Okay.
Yep. Good question. Other questions, guys?
So can you explain to me again, like how you want it set up, please?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. All I'm asking you to do, if you download the template from the assignment, it's a Microsoft Word template. You're going to pick a company, and each one of those environments we just went through, you're going to name a positive and a negative for that company in that environment. So, for example, if you picked, let's say you picked McDonald's, an economic advantage would be, even in a down economy, people can afford cheap food. A negative would be, in the current economy, enough people make enough money that they don't want to buy 99-cent hamburgers. They want something better. That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay, and if you need help with it, hit me up after class on Monday. I'll gladly give you a hand with that. Other questions, guys?
Are we done covering the material for today?
Yes, we are.
Could you go back to the, let's see. Let me try and find it. It's the challenges and opportunities of the modern workforce. Can you go back to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We covered that pretty quickly. Yeah, I mean the external the external challenges are you've got technology that maybe you're not creating within your company that you got to manage.
Remember to your shit. So whenever you get a chance, can you like check it for me, or if I could check it? All right, man.
I'm sorry. Everybody good? The audio gets a little choppy when we have multiple people, but we've got another external challenges. We got multiple generations because we've got 5 generations in the workplace right now, and we're trying to appeal to 5 generations, both in the companies that we're running and also the products and services we're making. Our work environments are changing, as we've seen with the whole COVID epidemic, but we're also getting into work environments now where we got to manage people sometimes of different generations or people who may not speak English as their primary language. Globalism simply means that we are a global economy, and that when something happens in one part of the world, the rest of us feel it, and we're being affected by things like pandemics. So some examples of internal challenges would be, how do you manage all these people from different generations and different walks of life? How do you keep control of these ideas, the intellectual property you're making? And the big one, man, if we got millennials, the generation right before you guys, who are leaving the job every 4 years, how do we keep good people in our companies and stay competitive? Does that all make sense? And I'm covering it quick. Trust me, we're going to review this stuff. Are there other questions, guys? Well, guys, I'm going to leave you to your weekend then. I will see you Monday in person. Guys, I want to thank you for a great first week. I'm really enjoying working with you guys, and I'm hoping you're enjoying the class. I will be seeing you Monday bright and early. Hey, do me a favor, though, this weekend, if you're going out, if you are meeting up with people, be safe, be careful, try to keep yourself healthy. We want to stay on campus this semester, and I can't wait to see you all on Monday, okay?
Mr. Tonkin?
Yes.
Is there any way I could get a jump start on that LinkedIn assignment since I already have a profile?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
And what we'll do, we'll cover it on Monday again, just to make sure you know everything we're going to be looking at.
Okay.
Yeah, you're always able to work ahead. Any other questions, guys? All right, guys, have a great weekend.